It's annoying when your author doesn't even seem to know where he is, or who he's talking to, or who the character even is.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why, like, some time ago, I came to the conclusion that everyone named Bret is just an annoying sack of garbage. I've never come across a Bret.
If you ever come across this video, he'll probably laugh and find it funny that you're like, yeah, everyone named Bret is.
Everyone named Bret is somehow annoying, and I don't know how they manage it or why they feel compelled to. Probably because their name is Bret, and it's just an unfinished name. But you don't have to overcompensate for your lack of uniqueness by being uniquely annoying. There are other ways to go about it.
Bug the shit out of me. I know it's in this book because I remember being pissed off twice the first time I read this book.
What are you looking for?
So I have the one scene. It's the scene between him and his mother at Sandstone, which is like him and his mother at lunch. And then there's another one.
It's near the end.
That one's near the end, but there's another one where he's talking about Easter with oh god, not Evelyn.
Courtney.
When he's with Courtney, and they're talking about like meeting or being together for Easter.
Well, that could have been any fucking conversation those two had, and I can't be bothered to help you find it. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I want to say that part was near the beginning, but maybe I'm just losing my mind. In bed with Courtney. It's near the end. They're both near the end.
I'm still irritated that Courtney didn't die.
I think this is it.
Even in his head.
Okay, I'm just gonna book or dog ear it just in case, and then I'm gonna find the other one. The two in less than zero, so I can just flip right fucking to them because they piss me the fuck off. Like, and it was because I did with Bret Easton Ellis what I'm doing with Don DeLillo right now, and I read his works one after the other. And so, like, this one and The Rules of Attraction read really quickly, so I still remembered reading these scenes so granted, these books were written pre-internet, and there were 6 years between this book and American Psycho, so like people probably could have easily forgotten that those lines were used in another book of his. But when you're reading them one after another within the course of a month, you're like, hold the fuck up. Hold the fuck up.
I feel like there were people who didn't forget, and they read it and they were like, well, hey, wait, that sounds familiar. Because that does happen to you when you're reading pieces. It does, especially if you take the time to really read it. Like, I've read that I've heard that, I've read that. Where was that? And then it comes to you, and you realize in 1994 that Bret Easton Ellis plagiarized himself because he was feeling just a little bit lazy.
91.
No, you
realize it
in 1994.
Okay. I won't say that I'm 100% innocent of reusing similar, like, cliche, like, you could say they're J.D. Clark cliches. Like, as I was going through Division Street, as I'm reworking it, I noticed that, like, in Arcadia and Division Street, I used the "with no real sense of urgency" line. Like, there are little bits and pieces where it's like, okay, I've reused that, but I'm not taking complete fucking scenes and dialogue and going, hey, I'll change up the details a bit, and of course there'll be different characters. Like Less Than Zero is very minimalist, as to where American Psycho, there's like a lot more detail in between the dialogue, but the dialogue is word. Okay, correction. In Less Than Zero, Blair, I think it's Blair, mentions like, will you at least call me before Christmas? And where Courtney says, will you call me before Thanksgiving? It's still a fucking holiday. No.
I'm curious, what is Less Than Zero about?
Less Than Zero is about Clay. He's coming back from college on the East Coast to LA to kind of like, and it's for Christmas break. And basically all that happens is like he's just walking around town. Julian, his friend, is like getting heavily into drugs and prostitution. There's a bunch of other weird shit. And basically Clay is just like basically completely apathetic to what's going on around him. And then he like goes back to college after everything's done. And then he appears very minimally in The Rules of Attraction as the kid from LA. Like he's not even a main character. He's just the kid from LA. And then Patrick Bateman actually makes his first appearance in The Rules of Attraction because his brother Sean is the main character, or one of the three main characters in Rules of Attraction, and Patrick has his own chapter where he's just bitching about Sean and how he's always late and never does anything. And he sort of goes into the whole like details of clothes, but it's not as fucking nauseating.
Well, here's my thing. I wonder, is he doing, or are you doing a similar thing where like they are all slightly connected within a certain framework?
With his work, everyone sort of lives in the same universe. The only book that's kind of self-contained is Less Than Zero. There are no mentions to previous characters. And Rules of Attraction is where it starts to kind of branch or plant the seeds of branching out, where you get Patrick Bateman. Patrick Bateman gets his own chapter, and then of course he's the main character in the next book. And then the book after American Psycho, which is Glamorama, in the Rules of Attraction, there was a character named Victor, and he was mostly gone, and he was going on this like Euro trip, doing acid and fucking everyone in sight. And then he comes back, and in Glamorama, he's the main character, and he's this like supermodel. Because Glamorama is essentially the book that Zoolander ripped off the idea for.
Okay.
And then Lunar Park is where it all kind of comes to a head. And so in Lunar Park, the main character is Bret Easton Ellis. And all of his past works are kind of slipping into his reality, but like you don't know if it's just side effects from his drug use in the past, or if someone's actually killing people American Psycho style, or if this kid named, I think Clayton, is like obviously an allusion to Clay. But then Imperial Bedrooms is a sequel to Less Than Zero, and there's no mention of the other characters. It's just Clay focusing on whatever he's doing in that book. And then there's a new book that's coming out or just came out. I can't remember if it's come out yet. And it takes place in the 80s, and the main character is, again, Bret Easton Ellis. And since I haven't read that one, I don't know if it's interconnected with anything else. It's fucking continuity, right? Fuck it, yeah.
Huh.
Other end, whichever end she ends up when we're done recording this, is E.K. Lloyd Williams, also known as just as E.K. And today we are reviewing American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis.
I don't like the way they did the cover for this book. I don't like the hyphenation here.
No, I much prefer the cover. I think it's the Italian cover that you showed me.
A faceless being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is essentially what Patrick Bateman was.
He's the boy next door.
Well, that's what I mean, a faceless being.
He's yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, Ray Charles, what did you score on plot?
On plot?
Since we're diving right in.
So, yeah, plot, I gave it a 7. Granted, there technically isn't a plot, but this book didn't really need one because it's not really a plot would not have been the primary focus. What you're focusing on is the downward spiral of an individual lost in this machine that has become America and Wall Street.
Mostly Wall Street, I think.
Well, Wall Street, but also just America, like the mass consumerism that we had developed by that point of we have to have the latest thing. And there was a technological boom in the 80s where it was like we were moving from cassettes to CDs. And I can't remember what the giant fucking disc thing was called, but before it was like the prototype of DVDs.
Oh. Yeah, I don't remember what it was called, but I know what you're talking about. Laserdisc.
Laser discs. But like, so like everyone had to have the latest commodity and everyone had to have the highest fashion. So where if everyone has to have it, everyone starts to feel the same. So that was more the focus of the book as opposed to like, oh, I wonder what happens.
Well, I mean, nothing really happens. Like, even with all the ups and the downs and the murder sprees, nothing fucking happens.
Yeah. So I'm giving it a 7 because, in my opinion, it did its job well enough to not be quite middling, but not because that ending, while I will admit, does serve its purpose, it still leaves you just a little bit unsatisfied.
Yeah, I gave it a 7, ultimately. For that purpose, like the plot doesn't exist. And what is there is so difficult to keep track of. It's so unreliable as a story.
Yeah.
It's a 7. And, you know, the thing that saves it is that it's not supposed to have a plot. It's supposed to be that exploration of the faceless and what someone will do or will dream of doing just for the sake of being notable.
Mm-hmm.
If only to himself.
Okay. Yes. So, now that we've kind of sort of skimmed over the plotlessness of this book, let us move to characters. How did you rate characters?
6.
Okay. I gave it an 8. And I can see why you gave it a 6, because everyone, as I mentioned before, is this sort of faceless,
interchangeable.
Everyone's very meh. Everyone's on drugs. Everyone's got the same shit. The only way that you even when you're given the details of what they're wearing, it's like, but they're all, you kind of just like gloss over, and it's like I don't know what they look like, really. I know what they're wearing, but since I don't come from that world, I don't know what that looks like.
I don't know what that looks like, and I don't know how that particularly pertains to that person's personality. Like, for Carruthers, for Lewis Carruthers...
It's not their personality. Patrick Bateman is letting you know how he feels of them on the status bar. Like,
well, yes.
Are they important?
See, even, like... Even as he feels about them on the status bar, what they wear is indicative of who they are as a person, internally, not just externally. So, like, take Lewis Carruthers, for example. Lewis Carruthers is always wearing something slightly gay.
And in concordance with everyone else, off.
Yes. Like, everyone else is kind of on the same page as to what the style is supposed to be. And Lewis Carruthers is always kind of on the outside, and that's how you always know he's talking about Lewis Carruthers, is because there's, like, it's always just kind of off, but there's also a disdain in the tone for the way he's describing Lewis.
Also, when it comes, because there's a scene involving cheesecake where Patrick is getting flustered because he wants to know what was on the cheesecake. He wants to know what kind of crust. He wants to know what, the, what's that word? Anyway, I can't remember, but like, and all Carruthers says is it was cheesecake, Patrick. Like it, because that part doesn't matter to Carruthers. The elegance of the dish doesn't matter. It's just, oh, they ate cheesecake. Well, what was on the cheesecake? Was it this? Was it that? What was the... Oh, what's that fucking thing? I'm not a culinary person. No, like it's the like for instance, on a dish, parsley would be
garnish.
Garnish. There we go. Thank you. Like, what was the garnish on it? What was the garnish on the plate? Like, what made it stand out from all other cheesecake? And Carruthers is just like, it was cheesecake, Patrick. And then he goes like, Patrick, you're sweating. Because Patrick's getting so flustered and pissed off, and it's like it's affecting his well-being to such a way.
Yes.
I can't remember if I've already said my score. I gave characters an 8. Now,
you did?
Yeah. Because now, while all the characters do feel samey, again, I do feel that was the point, is that everyone is interchangeable to where you could get away with the murder of Owen, and no one would know except for those who actually closely knew him. Everyone else is just like, oh yeah, I had lunch with him like last week, when they probably had lunch with someone else. So, I mean, while everyone does feel the same, I will say that I feel that was the point.
It explains why economics went the way it did in the 80s and 90s, because nobody knew who anybody was.
Yeah. Now, you did mention earlier that Tim Price was your favorite character.
Tim Price was my favorite because he was the most singular. And he was hardly even there.
Now,
that might be what I liked most about him, was because he wasn't there enough to get lost in the cacophony of mundanity.
Yeah. Well, even the novel starts with him. You don't really start with Patrick. I mean, it might be Patrick detailing everything, but the first lines of dialogue are from Tim.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did you notice that when Tim was there at the beginning, everything kind of felt normal? It was only after he left that Patrick started to spiral. And then when Tim came back, Patrick started to level out again.
I did notice that.
Okay, 2 possible theories.
You think Tim and Patrick are the same person?
It's either that, or Patrick's actually mentally sick, because he does take medication.
Right.
What now? When Tim is gone is when the killings start, but when he comes back, the killings stop. Is it actually Tim killing people, and Patrick's delusions are maybe he see without it's off screen that or off the page, that he witnesses something on the news or in the paper that someone was killed, or in the instance of the homeless man maimed and the dog, does he read it and then fill in the blanks with his own imagination what he would have done in that situation? So is Tim actually the one killing, if the killings are actually real, because it is played ambiguously whether or not these are just the delusions of Patrick, or daydreams, I should say.
I don't think it's either of those. I think it's more likely that because Patrick is mentally ill, like, and because of how, like, the closeness that he has with Tim, as it's portrayed in the early parts of the book, I think Tim is kind of like his sort of like his sounding board or his baseline, something like he knows that like this is something that he can sort of his guideline. Like if he's not really sure what he's supposed to do or how he should react or what's going to come down, he can always look that direction. And I think with Tim being pulled out of the picture, he didn't have that baseline anymore. He didn't have that guide to measure his behavior, because he talks about how like he's trying to fit in, but he doesn't really know how. So he's just doing all of this other stuff. And then you have this one unique kind of character, or this one unique personality, the only unique personality that's his baseline, and without his baseline he doesn't know what to do, so he's just careening from one extreme to the other until that baseline returns.
Yeah.
I think that's more like
that is more likely, but it is fun to play with the idea of like, is Tim, now you say like the baseline, I mean obviously Tim is real because there are interactions
between him and other characters.
Between him and other characters. But the out of the two theories, not that they're the same person. Wait. Is it Tim and Courtney? Is Tim and Courtney, are they the item?
No, it's Lewis and Courtney.
Okay, that's right.
Tim wants Courtney, and he's kind of dogging her on the side from Patrick, who is dogging her on the side from Lewis. And I think Tim wants to marry her, but he doesn't, or he can't, because he's got whatever problem he has.
Now, bringing that whole sort of triangle into play, do you see sort of a connection between American Psycho and possibly another book? Let's just say Tim Price's Gatsby.
I mean, I can see the connection. So what, this is Nick, if Nick was like psychotic?
Yes.
I guess in a way. It makes sense.
Anyway.
But I doubt, from what I've read about what Bret Easton Ellis said about this book, I really doubt if that was his inspiration.
I doubt it was his inspiration. Having read DeLillo's first book, Americana, I see more of there could have been inspiration from Americana to American Psycho, because the main character of that book is a high-end 20... Hold on, let me make sure.
He's 27.
He's 27 in this book? No, he's 26. It says he's 26 here, but he does turn 27. And in Americana, he is 28. So roughly the same age. But the main character of that book is a high-end TV network executive, and he goes on this like road trip to kind of like find himself, but he does like describe what he's wearing, and it's kind of monotonous to the degree that he goes. And also he does show some violent tendencies. He doesn't kill anybody, but he does, like, if a woman like disagrees with him, he'll like beat the shit out of them and whatnot. So like I could see more where he took inspiration from that book than The Great Gatsby. And Bret Easton Ellis has said he's a fan of DeLillo, and actually Glamorama was his sort of homage to him. So I could see that. But yeah, no, I mean, I can see why you would give characters a 6. Again, they are all very samey, and you kind of, like you kind of, as you're reading it, were like, okay, Patrick, kill that bitch or kill that guy. Like I'm done dealing with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then he never does. Like the two bitches he could have killed, Courtney and Evelyn, like he never even touched. And you're like, come on, guy. If you're going to commit mass murder, you might as well kill the most annoying people around, and you happen to know all of them. How did you feel about Style?
Style, I gave him a 9.
I gave him an 8.
Okay. For me, I mean, this isn't my first time reading American Psycho. This is your first read through. I mean, his style does stay consistent throughout his work, but this one is his most maximalist in terms of, especially with the fucking clothing and products. Any other book sans Glamorama, I'd be giving this style a 10 because I do enjoy Ellis's style. In fact, Glamorama would probably be getting a 7 if we read Glamorama.
God, which means I'd probably hate it.
9, I dock it a point just because of the over. I mean, I would get it if it was at the beginning to set like the baseline of like this is how Patrick functions. But I wouldn't have. I would have much preferred had it sort of teetered out as the book carried on and he's losing his mind, because then it would bring focus to his spiral and to where it's like, okay, I no longer care about what I cared before because I have no idea who I am, kind of thing. Like, I feel like it would have been better. It would have been a better representation of his spiral had he kind of stopped caring about appearances and just kind of more focused on different things. Like he's bouncing back and forth, like not knowing what until Tim gets back, and then sort of go back to like, okay, now I can kind of focus again. But it stayed consistent throughout. I'm just like, no, especially when he's like having his panic attacks, he wouldn't be like, oh, my heart was beating, and then like, oh, this whatever was wearing this. I'm like, no, you wouldn't focus on that during a panic attack. You'd be more focused on what's going on in here and trying to shut out the outside world so you can calm yourself.
Well, unless like that's listing that thing's the thing that helps kind of get back to center. Yeah,
but like, well, here's the thing though, is since I think pretty sure one of his panic attacks happens in the city, I feel like the focusing outward would work better if he was like in his office or at a party where he's among his people. But when you're out in the city and you could come across a homeless person or some person who's not dressed to your standard, I feel like that would just stress you out more, because it's like, oh, good God, how could you wear that? Like, so.
Well, because that's what he falls back on. Like, that's the thing that gives him. That's the thing that helps to reduce his anxiety, and it's the thing that helps to cause his anxiety. Like, what causes his anxiety is the constant wondering of, is he socially superior to the people around him? And the thing that gives him kind of a sort of, like, comfort is the fact that he can look at some bum on the street, the fact that he can look at just some guy working in a hotel and no, like it, and you see it happen a couple of times where he degrades them, and it gives him this false sense of security because he can outmatch them in this department because he is more financially secure, and because he is more financially secure, he is better than they are. Like, that's the tier that gets him back to level. And as the book goes on, that becomes less and less effective because his guiding baseline is not there. Like everything else, it's like this hollow sort of thing that he's drawing upon. There's nothing there for him, but that's all he has until Tim reappears. That's what I think. But as far as his style goes, no, I gave him an 8, and Honestly, it was just that he writes with a profound sense of self-importance. And it's so it's just tiring to read.
Mm-hmm.
You know how self-satisfied and self-important people are just kind of, annoying to be around. You don't want to talk to them at the drive-through, let alone shut the fuck up. Okay, I am not that bad.
Oh, I was making fun of myself.
You're wearing sunglasses and your blinds are closed. No, you can't read your paper. Don't hurt your eyes trying, please.
Okay, I can read it now. Okay.
Concept and execution.
Okay, so this is where a book that I enjoyed on third read through starts to fall apart for me. Concept, I gave him a 4.
I gave him a 4.5.
Wow, higher. Okay. What dipped at the half point for you?
Because I like that kind of thing. I like that kind of idea, that material. Like you're exploring somebody going. It wasn't. The reason I didn't give it a full 5 was because I was just. It was ultimately an empty concept. Like it's a fun thing to go down. It's a fun kind of thought experiment to have. But ultimately, it's empty. There's no real purpose to it.
I would say, agreeing with you, it's a fun concept to play with, but not for an entire book. It's fun to kind of mention it in passing, or every now and then. For instance, tooting my own horn here, or jacking myself off. It does get mentioned in false cathedrals, like the shopping center, like where Aiden's like looking for a victim, but like he says, like everything had been moved around in the store, which creates this sense of chaos because now everyone doesn't know where anything is, but it's not. That's not the primary focus. It's like, oh, shopping center. Like the whole book doesn't take place in a Walmart,
right?
But it's fun to explore it in passing. Do not make an entire book out of mass consumerism. Like you get tired of it.
Profoundly,
and even like exploring other forms of consumerism, where like instead of consuming product, you're consuming your time on social media. Like it's good to do that in passing, but you don't need to do an entire book about people spending their days and their lives on Facebook or Twitter or Pinterest.
Oh God, please don't. Somebody's going to. Please don't. Please don't. Stop now.
Putting it out in the universe. Someone write a book like that to torture EK.
No.
We will review it for the channel.
Don't do it. What did you give him on execution?
Execution, I gave him a 2.
I gave him a 3.
Wow.
I was being generous, though.
Okay.
Like, on purpose. In reality, it was probably a 2.
Okay. 2, again, bringing back a previous note, the execution of bringing up constantly what people are wearing, what they own, what they're eating or drinking, who they're fucking. We don't need it every goddamn page.
It doesn't matter.
Like I get it. I do. I get it, Bret Easton Ellis. I get what you were doing, but it doesn't need to be every fucking page.
I feel like you could have effectively made the same point and included less of it.
Yeah. Like, you don't need to do it every time someone walks in the room.
It was every time someone walked in the room.
Just say, Carruthers sat down. I don't need Carruthers sat down. He was wearing a bow tie from blah, blah, blah. He was wearing a jacket from this, a shirt from here, his pants were whatever, his shoes, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, he could have just sat down, and you could have said that his outfit was off. Something, just one of the items was off. I don't need the entire outfit to be off. The bow tie would have sold it. No one else is wearing a bow tie. Fucking only mention the bow tie. Everyone else is wearing a normal fucking tie. Carruthers is wearing a bow tie. There you go. You have made it to where he stands out. He is off. He's gay. We get it. Like, Courtney's his beard.
Barely.
Barely, but still, she's there.
You know, usually I'm the one who goes off like this, so it's nice to see you do it.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, younger me, like, 26, 24, 28 when I reread it again, I enjoyed it, but, like, now that I'm, like, kind of more separated from the age in which the character is supposedly, I'm just like, I wouldn't fucking care. Like, okay, so I'm rewatching Seinfeld.
Why?
It's good background noise while I'm reworking Division Street, and I did I did catch a bit where George is basically just bitching about, like, oh, those whatever's, like oh, those musicians with their whatever boots or whatever. It's like, but like younger you kind of cared sort of what the fashion was in terms of your favorite musicians, like for instance, like if you were into My Chem, they wear all black, you're probably going to start wearing all black. But like as an older adult, you don't really care about the style of whatever artist you're listening to. You just enjoyed the music. So it's like, why do I care about what the fucking artist is wearing? Why do I care what haircut they have? Like I was saying, it gets a 2 in execution because, I mean, like I said, as a younger adult, I could relate to it a little more. You did kind of want to stay in the loop of what was the latest band, what movies were people watching, what books were people reading. But as I get older, it's like I don't fucking care. So my read through as a 32-year-old male, I don't fucking care about what they're wearing. Execution, I don't care about what they own. The execution of this gets dropped to a 2 because we could have spent less time on the articles of clothing and spent more time on the descent into madness.
I agree with you completely. I did give him a 3 on execution, but purely because I was trying to be less mean than I wanted to be. Structure.
I gave it a 10.
I give it an 8.
Wow. Okay, so now we're back to you being the sourpuss.
The mean one.
The mean one.
That little break there was really short-lived.
It was. What made you said 8?
8.
What docked it for you?
It was put together well enough that you could follow the story. The overall feeling of not knowing what was going on was probably necessary, and it worked well with the overall story, but it wasn't remarkable. I could get the same confusion from a poorer writer at a cheaper price.
How much did you pay for your book?
More than I should have. I think it was like $15.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like $15. This was not worth $15 of confusion. This was like $5 worth of confusion. And I say that in that I don't want to be confused when I read a book. And if I have to shell out more than $10 to just be confused the whole time, I'm going to be really annoyed. I might send Bret Easton Ellis a sack of poop in the mail.
Before we continue, I do kind of want because this book, before it was even published, was getting a lot of flack for its violence against women. And
I mean, that's what you get for being a slut, though. So, just keep your knees together and you'll be fine.
The woman doing the slut shaming, that's fun.
Well, okay, but honestly, every single one of those women could have avoided what happened to them or happened to them if they hadn't gone off fucking a guy just because he had drugs. Like, behave with a higher sense of morality and you will be at a much lower risk of being murdered serially. Anyway, you were saying.
I was saying, yeah, I gave structure a 10 because, I mean, you do put it quite brilliantly put together to where you said, like, this was not worth $15.95 in my case.
Yeah, I think that's tax. What I paid for it, plus tax.
Thankfully, no shipping and handling because I went into a store.
I got it at a reduced price, so it was like $16 total, maybe.
But yeah, no, it was beautifully put together in terms of, and I did like, so a lot of people would probably have complained that the chapters didn't have a page break that started just like where the last chapter ended. I did like that because it did feel sort of more like, especially since this is first person, it felt like journal entries, especially since they have even the titles of them, like, because like you do have several chapters that are all titled girls or girl. Well,
it helps with that continuity. Like, you can see where you left off. Like, to your point about it being like diary entries or journal entries, you can see where you left off and then you can build from there. Or sort of kind of pick up the pieces from where you were. It's still confusing as fuck, though.
Yeah. So I did like that. I did like that aspect where it kind of felt like you were just reading the mindless, not even mindless, but the very aimless ramblings of a character. Like, he's just basic, because there are some chapters where it's just he's stating what he did. That's all that happens.
I know. I skimmed those parts. I didn't skip them. I just skimmed them for important information, and since there was none, I just went on to the next one. Don't ask me what happened in them. I purposely did not retain it.
But I mean, I'm still going to keep it a 10, even though I do agree with you. While it's not anything extraordinary, it never really took me out of the story. Like, I didn't feel like, okay, it didn't feel like I'm like, okay, I'm just reading a book. Like, you do kind of still stay consumed in this mass consumerism world and this sort of almost post-structuralist philosophy that he's kind of going through. Okay, so to diction.
I gave him a 7.
Gave him a 9.
I gave him a 7 because he was annoying me.
Oh god.
This is what happens. This is the problem. Like, I say that this rubric is meant to be objective.
Yes.
It's meant to be an objective evaluation, but there comes a point when I am so profoundly annoyed that I don't care what you say. Something's getting talked. Diction was, I mean, okay, objectively, it was like a 7.5. It wasn't great. It wasn't terrible. He's loquacious. He is adept at getting his point across using the English language. Very, very well done. But it wasn't anything remarkable, I thought. What did I say? Solid, good use of some uncommon words, nothing terribly evocative, though. Like, he didn't go out of his way to really, the only thing he went out of his way to really make you see and understand was what people were wearing and what food they were eating. And that only goes so far. Why did you give him a 9?
You pretty much covered it. I just wasn't as annoyed. I just wasn't as annoyed. My score just keeps going down though. Anyway. So
it's like if his writing hand was a mouth and I could stuff a sock in it, I would like to. Are his other works better than this one?
Hold on. Let's fuck continuity, right? Fuck it. I would say... Now, I probably, if anyone who sees this who's a diehard, like, American Psycho is his magnum opus, I'm gonna say no. There are works better than this. Glamour is not one of them. Well, if you can get past the beginning where it's like, the dialogue is like, oh my god, like you cringe reading it. I feel like even in 1998, people were cringing at the dialogue. But I would say Rules of Attraction, or sorry, The Rules of Attraction, because there are books that are called Rules, not the. Anyway, Less Than Zeros, you have to be in the mood for that. But I would say The Rules of Attraction is actually... So The Rules of Attraction and probably Lunar Park are better than American Psycho.
Okay.
Lunar Park is funnier, but also more sentimental, especially right near the end. And there are some chapters in The Rules of Attraction, especially with this one character whom you never learn the name of. I'm pretty sure because it's like a nameless chapter. And you basically read her suicide. Like that. Like especially if you've ever like had thoughts of it, you're just like you kind of have to like take a break after reading that chapter. So like The Rules of Attraction is far more affecting. Like you can actually feel affected by reading that book as opposed to this.
Well, maybe I'll give Rules of Attraction a try, because this I was not remotely affected by.
Let's let you kind of breathe a bit after this. Like let's do.
I'm definitely going to be breathing a bit.
I mean, like let's give you a bit of breathing room between Ellis's.
That's what I mean. Like I'm probably gonna put more of my energy to whichever, it's going to be split between whichever DeLillo we decide to do and then this one.
Okay.
So that I can read something that doesn't make me want to find Bret Easton Ellis and...
He's in LA.
I'm not. The cartels will take care of him for me.
No. Both sides of the political spectrum will take care of that for you, because he doesn't really.
No, the cartels will take care of him. I don't need Republicans or Democrats to get involved. Just leave him for the cartels.
No, the Hollywood bubble will take care of him, because unlike everyone else, he's not a liberal. He's sort of like borderline apolitical, but sort of more right-leaning.
I mean...
And it's funny because he's dating someone our age who is a hard-on for Bernie Sanders. Formatting.
Formatting, I gave him a 10.
I originally gave him a 10, but I docked him to an 8.
Why?
Why? Happy you asked. It's nothing spectacular.
No.
And this, well, that it probably would go more towards his style, but whoever edited this, I mean, I get it would seem weird to have those long paragraphs cut up a bit, but
would it have been the worst thing in the world? Would it have been the worst idea anybody's ever had?
And he's not the only one guilty of doing pages of endless paragraphs. Like David Foster Wallace is also guilty of it, and his books are huge, so it makes it even worse that they last 3 pages. You know, there are other novelists out there who are guilty of this, like just block of text, but
don't do the block of text, folks.
Yeah.
Don't do the block of text. Unless you're going for a record for longest continuous paragraph, in which case that's perfectly acceptable, but don't do a block of text and call it art. It isn't art. You're just terrible at editing and formatting.
But yeah, that and it's not even and it's because it kept coming up that I would have to read these blocks. And unlike you, I didn't skim. Even though I'd read this before, I didn't skim.
Why?
Why? Because you could call it method reading. I wanted to infuriate myself to when we got to an actual killing, I'd be like, oh yeah, oh, stroke me good, daddy. Like,
did it work?
It worked.
Did it?
It did. So you shouldn't.
That's why he did it then. Like, he was just enraging you until somebody died. And then you're like,
hell, the first maiming doesn't happen until page 130.
It's a ways in there.
31? Like, it takes you a while to get to the first, and not even a killing, the first stabbing.
I know. Like, of all the people this is one of the funny things about this book. Of all the people he allegedly did kill, the one person he definitely didn't kill was someone who he actually thought of as being beneath him.
Yeah.
Less than human.
But
like, he was willing to fuck the prostitute.
Mm-hmm. Well, all of those people are beneath him.
But he wasn't willing to kill the homeless guy.
Yeah.
And that's one of the funny parts of this book.
That could be, and I'm not saying this was intentional, but that could be, especially if we look back at like the Great Depression and Black Monday. Yeah, Black Monday, where the stock market crashed.
Mm-hmm.
That could have been like a subtle sort of reminder of that time period where it's like, I could easily be you. In a day, I could easily be you. So maybe that's why he didn't kill him, but he maimed him as a means of like, if I maim him, I can't become him. Because even if I'm homeless, I still have my eyes.
Maybe, but
I'm not saying that was intentional, but that you could read
maybe.
Into it that
but
way.
that's the thing. Patrick Bateman, who has a way of waxing lyrical about his thought processes, would almost like he would either allude to it or say something.
Well, that's where I would say that wasn't Patrick.
That was probably Bret.
That was Ellis. That was Ellis making that. Like, I mean, because possibly, at the time,
but I feel like that would require more self-awareness than Ellis has.
Well, here's the thing though, like Ellis, because his first book, like, basically pushed him into like literary Brat Pack stardom.
Mm.
And then, so by the publication of American Psycho, he was no longer living in LA. He was no longer in college in Vermont. He was living in New York City, you know, the pinnacle of America kind of thing. So like he was kind of at the top. And maybe that was his sort of like, I'm one bad book or one bad day away from being back to nothing. But if I can gouge this person's eyes out, at least I have my sight. I can, with my eyes still intact, I could still look toward the future and rebuild.
I mean,
I'm not saying like you said, I'm not saying Bret Easton Ellis had that sort of insight and self-awareness, but it's at least if it were me, that's what I would have been trying to like subtly say with that passage.
Yeah, you and Bret Easton Ellis are two different characters. You're not chronically annoying.
I'm still annoying, but it's not chronic.
Yeah, you're a pain in my ass, but you're not like, it's not, I would, between you and Bret Easton Ellis, I would pick you in terms of annoyance, because at least there is a solid flow of logic with what you're doing. For him, he's just self-gratifying. He might as well masturbate in front of a mirror.
I do that. No.
No, you don't.
No, I don't. I stare at the mirror and go like, "That would so fuck me."
It fucked me so hard.
It fucked me so hard. Anyway, moving on to, speaking of masturbating in front of a mirror, moving on to length.
I gave it. Why did I give it 6? I really should have given it 5.
I gave it a 6. Because, and again, regurgitating an old note. It could have been a lot shorter.
It could have been so much. I think, do you know what my note was for this? I do not care about the fucking clothes.
Is this the same note as just like details?
No. Like, this is why I'm upset. Like, it was too long because he wouldn't shut up about clothes. If he would shut up about clothes and just move on, we would all be having a great time. But I don't know how many, I don't want to go through and count how many pages he wasted just talking about clothes, because I don't care about the clothes.
Okay. So I'm going to save a tangent of mine for quotability, which will be coming up afterwards, right after this. But
I was going to say, how long are we going to take on length?
Anyway, oh, that was the tuba. I was
doing the drums, you were doing the tuba, because we both saw the pun.
Yeah.
Yes. Dick. Go on.
Anyway, no, this could have been so much shorter. Like this is a page from being 400 pages long.
It could have been.
This could have been like under 300 pages.
It could have been 49 pages shorter if he had taken out all the bits with clothes and food.
This could have easily been 100 pages shorter. That's how often it, because you could even, while they do serve to point out Patrick's mindset, you could have cut out the fucking Whitney Houston Genesis and.
Oh God!
Cut those out too.
Huey Lewis and the News. Too hip to be square.
Oh, okay, so moving on to quotability.
I gave him a 0 because there was nothing remarkable enough for me to hold on to it.
Okay. So I gave him a 4. Although, here's the thing. Even though I did find, and this is even like from the first time I read it, even though I did have found 2 sections near the end of the book to be quotable, this might still get a 0 actually from me because of 2 other instances where the man plagiarizes himself. And I'm going to read those bits because people need to know, okay?
Shall I include the bits that you read in the video?
Yes.
Because people need to know.
People need to know just how fucking infuriating this was for me the first time I read Bret Easton Ellis's entire oeuvre. Because, and now granted, like I said before, the first book came out in 1985, American Psycho came out in 1991, there's a 6-year gap between books, people probably forgot that these scenes, or at least the dialogue of these scenes, and maybe when they read American Psycho, they probably had some kind of like subconscious, like, okay, this feels familiar, but I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're reading them back to back to back within the course of a month, you still remember vividly reading these scenes. Do you want the quotes that I found, or do you want the instances of plagiarism?
The floor is yours, Mr. Speaker.
We're going to go with the quotes first, because unlike some people where it's like, okay, bad news first, good news last. No. You're going to get the good news first, which in my opinion is the quote, or is the quotes, are the quotes, and then we're going to go with this man was lazy and thought he was being sneaky.
I'm probably just going to use this opportunity to zoom in on you. So you're going to take up the whole screen.
That's fine.
Because this is going to be JD's rant.
Anyway. Quote number 1, and these quotes, so the first quote is on page 374 to 375, and the second quote is 376 to 377. Like,
so close?
So they're so close together that, like, in a sense, that in itself should negate them, but no, it's the plagiarism. It's the self-referential moments that pissed me off. Anyway, so and it's the fact that the quotes, because both instances happened before I got to the quotes that I liked. So maybe upon first reading, I was like, okay, I may be pissed off at that, but I still have these 2 little nuggets. So it kind of, back then I forgave it. By the way, the font that this is printed in is Caledonia. I can tell by looking at it. Anyway, the first quote is, oh, okay. The first quote is, where there was nature and earth, life and water, I saw a desert landscape that was unending, resembling some sort of crater, so devoid of reason and light and spirit that the mind could not grasp it on any sort of conscious level, and if you came close, the mind would reel backward, unable to take it in. It was a vision so clear and real and vital to me that in its purity, it was almost abstract. This was what I could understand. This was how I lived my life, what I constructed my movement around, how I dealt with the tangible. This was the geography around which my reality revolved. It did not occur to me, ever, that people were good, or that a man was capable of change, or that the world could be a better place through one's taking pleasure in a feeling, or a look or a gesture, of receiving another person's love or kindness. Nothing was affirmative. The term generosity of spirit applied to nothing, was a cliche, was some kind of bad joke. Sex is mathematics. Individuality no longer an issue. What does intelligence signify? Define reason. Desire, meaningless. Intellect is not a cure. Justice is dead. Fear, recrimination, innocence, sympathy, guilt, waste, failure, grief, were things, emotions, that no one really felt anymore. Reflection is useless. The world is senseless. Evil is its only permanence. God is not alive. Love cannot be trusted. Surface, surface, surface was all that anyone found meaning in. This was civilization as I saw it, colossal, and jagged. That's the first quote. The second quote on the next page, and this is like quoted in the movie as well, so it's kind of its significance is sort of diminished, but I don't think they do the entire paragraph. There is an idea of a Patrick Bateman, some kind of abstraction, but there is no real me, only an entity, something illusory. And though I can hide my cold gaze and you can shake my hand and feel flesh gripping yours, and maybe you can even sense our lifestyles are probably comparable, I simply am not there. It is hard for me to make sense on any given level. Myself is fabricated, an aberration. I'm a non-contingent human being. My personality is sketchy and unformed. My heartlessness goes deep and is persistent. My conscience, my pity, my hopes disappeared a long time ago, probably at Harvard, if they ever did exist. There are no more barriers to cross. All I have in common with the uncontrollable and the insane, the vicious and the evil, all the mayhem I have caused and my utter indifference toward it, I have now surpassed. I still, though, hold on to one single bleak truth. No one is safe, nothing is redeemed. Yet I am blameless. Each model of human behavior must be assumed to have some validity. Is evil something you are, or is it something you do? My pain is constant and sharp, and I do not hope for a better world for anyone. In fact, I want my pain to be inflicted on others. I want no one to escape. But even after admitting this, and I have countless times in just about every act I've committed, and coming face to face with these truths, there is no catharsis. I gain no deeper knowledge about myself. No new understanding can be extracted from my telling. There has been no reason for me to tell you any of this. This confession has meant nothing. Here's why I like the second one. That last little bit, I feel like, is Bret Easton Ellis telling you in on the joke right before the end of the novel. You have wasted your time. I have consumed your time for 377 pages, and even as I'm writing this book, I have gained no deeper knowledge about myself, no new understanding. Like, there has been no reason for me to tell you any of this. There's been no reason for you to read any of this. This book means nothing. This is nihilism personified in a book. What I liked about these quotes was I felt like it was sort of a peek behind the veil of the fiction, where it's like, okay, this is no longer Patrick talking. This is Bret. You are now talking, like, if you view books as a conversation between you and the author, there's always sort of that, like, distance, or, like I said, that curtain that keeps you separated from you and the author because you're reading it through the lens of a character. Mm-hmm. I feel like these two quotes was Bret's, like, opening the curtain, being like, hey, now it's going to be you and me. This is no longer Patrick, although it's still under the guise of Patrick, but it is first person, so it's like I. So he's telling you, this is how I feel. I'm not happy. And because I'm not happy, I want to inflict pain on others. I'm miserable. I want you to feel miserable. We've all been there. When your life is shit, and instead of making yourself better, you'd rather just make other people miserable. So in that sense, reading those passages is like, especially when I was a younger 20-something-year-old male, I was like, yeah, especially like, you take losing family members, losing friends, in a sense, I was miserable. So it was like, yeah, fuck the world. Inflict your pain on others. Like, who gives a shit? Nothing matters. All that matters, especially in the case of this book, and it's in those instances where those quotes, especially when he says surface, surface, surface is all that matters. Right there, it's like, okay. Especially on the first read through, I was like, okay, it makes sense why he was describing the clothing, why he was detailing the products people were using, the food they were eating. Surface in this world is all that matters. Who you are as a person, that doesn't matter. What matters is how I can identify you in terms of what you wear, what you own, and what you eat. Surface, surface, surface. I don't want to know you. I just want to know the bare minimum. So, like, especially when I was a younger person, like, that resonated with me. I was like, yeah, because especially like as like childhood friendships, high school, college friendships started to sort of like teeter off a bit, and you sort of feel that kind of alone in a sense. You don't want to go through the effort of getting to know someone else. You kind of just want to be solitary. So it's like, okay, I will know your name. I will know, we will have a conversation, and then you're gone. Fuck continuity, right? Fuck it. But yeah, no, like I didn't know your name until your mom was like, just said it out loud. And I was like, okay, I can stop saying, like, when you would like text me and I'd be like, hey, you, hey. Like, you were the grammarian in my phone for the first month, because I'm just like, I don't know the name.
What's terrible is that I think I told you.
You did, but it was like I said, surface, surface, surface. Once we had like finished a conversation and like I went to sleep, it was like, I don't remember the name. I don't remember the name at all. But anyway, to the point of contention with this book. So, there are two scenes that play out. And I'm going to read In Bed with Courtney first. And then I will read the section from Less Than Zero, and then I'll go to Sandstone, and then go to the section in Less Than Zero. I'm in Courtney's bed. Lewis is in Atlanta. Courtney shivers, presses against me, relaxes. I roll off her onto my back, landing on something hard and covered with fur. I reach under myself to find a stuffed black cat with blue jewels for eyes that I think I spotted at FAO Schwartz when I was doing some early Christmas shopping. I'm at a loss as to what to say, so I stammer. Tiffany lamps are making a comeback. I can barely see her face in the darkness, but hear the sigh, painful and low. The sound of the prescription bottle snapping open, her body shifting in the bed. I drop the cat on the floor, get up, take a shower. On the Patty Winters show this morning, the topic was beautiful teenage lesbians, which I found so erotic I had to stay home, miss a meeting, jerk off twice. Aimless, I spent an inordinate amount of the day at Sotheby's, bored and confused. Last night, dinner with Jeanette at deck chairs. She seemed tired and ordered little. We split a pizza that cost $90. After toweling my hair dry, I put on a Ralph Lauren robe and walk back into my bedroom, start to dress. Courtney is smoking a cigarette, watching Late Night with David Letterman, the sound turned down low. And here's where it begins. Will you call me before Thanksgiving, she asks. Maybe. I button up the front of my shirt, wondering why I even came here in the first place. What are you doing, she asks, speaking slowly. My response is predictably cool. Dinner at the River Cafe. Afterwards, au boire, maybe. That's nice, she murmurs. You and Lewis, I ask. We were supposed to have dinner at Tad and Maura's, she sighs, but I don't think we're going to anymore. Why not? I slip on my vest, black cashmere from Polo, thinking I am really interested. Well, you know how Lewis is about the Japanese, she starts, her eyes already glazed over. When she fails to continue, I ask, annoyed, you're making sense, go on. Anyway, I'm going to stop there because I think that's where it ended with the whole, will you call me before Thanksgiving, maybe, da-da-da-da-da. So we go to less than 0, 6 years earlier. I'm lying in Blair's bed. There are all these stuffed animals on the floor and at the foot of the bed, and when I roll over onto my back, I feel something hard and covered with fur, and I reach under myself, and it's this stuffed black cat. I drop it on the floor and then get up and take a shower. After I've toweled my hair dry, I wrap the towel around my waist and walk back into her room, start to dress. Blair's smoking a cigarette and watching MTV, the sound turned down low. Will you call me before Christmas, she asks. Maybe. I pull on my vest, wondering why I even came here in the first place. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they have the dialogue continue even further to this entire little scene, but he goes complete maximalism with that, so I didn't bother. And then there is the scene with the mother. This time I'm going to read less than 0 first, because it's less. But it goes, my mother and I are sitting in a restaurant on Melrose, and she's drinking white wine and still has her sunglasses on, and she keeps touching her hair, and I keep looking at my hands, pretty sure that they're shaking. She tries to smile when she asks me what I want for Christmas. I'm surprised at how much effort it takes to raise my head up and look at her. Nothing, I say. There's a pause, and then I ask her, what do you want? She says nothing for a long time, and I look back at my hands, and she sips her wine. I don't know. I just want to have a nice Christmas. I don't say anything. You look unhappy, she says real suddenly. I'm not, I tell her. You look unhappy, she says, more quietly this time. She touches her hair, bleached blondish again. You do too, I say, hoping that she won't say anything else. She doesn't say anything else until she's finished her 3rd glass of wine and poured her 4th. And I don't think it goes on after that, because she says, how was the party? And I don't think there was a party in question. But then we go to Sandstone on page 365. My mother and I are sitting in her private room at Sandstone, where she is now a permanent resident. Heavily sedated, she has her sunglasses on and keeps touching her hair, and I keep looking at my hands, pretty sure that they're shaking. She tries to smile when she asks what I want for Christmas. I'm not surprised at how much effort it takes to raise my head and look at her. I'm wearing a 2-button wool gabardine suit with notched lapels by Gianmarco Venturi, cap-toed leather lace-ups by Armani, tie by Polo, socks I'm not sure where from. It's nearing the middle of April. Nothing, I say, smiling reassuringly. There's a pause. I break it by asking, what do you want? She says nothing for a long time, and I look back at my hands, at dried blood, probably from a girl named Suki, beneath the thumbnail. My mother licks her lips tiredly and says, I don't know. I just want to have a nice Christmas. I don't say anything. I spent the last hour studying my hair in the mirror. I've insisted the hospital keep in my mother's room. You look unhappy, she says suddenly. I'm not, I tell her with a brief sigh. You look unhappy, she says, more quietly this time. She touches her hair, stark, blinding white again. Well, you do too, I say slowly, hoping that she won't say anything else. She doesn't say anything else. I'm sitting in a chair by the window, and through the bars, the lawn outside darkens. A cloud passes over the sun. Soon the lawn turns green again. She sits on her bed in a nightgown from Bergdorf's and slippers by Norma Kamali that I bought for her Christmas last year. Oh, there's a party. How was the party, she asks. Okay, I say, guessing. So, yeah, the dialogue is fucking word for word the same. And even the fact that it's a mother, and in both cases with Less Than Zero and American Psycho, either a girlfriend or someone he's sleeping with, pissed me off when I read that. So I'm conflicted of giving him the quotability points of 4, or the fact that he plagiarizes himself, dropping that to either 2 or 0. So I'm going to mark him down 2 points. So he gets a 2 for quotability, which would have originally been a 4, simply because he regurgitated old Ellis to me. I feel like now you could look at this as, okay, potentially these were conversations that he actually had with maybe his mother and someone he was screwing back in the 80s. And maybe it was like, I don't know if his mother's still alive or when she died, or this person he was in a relationship with, maybe it ended in such a bad way and he remembers these conversations and he just fictionalized them. And or there's even the case of he really didn't need the word count in American Psycho with all the fucking fluff that he had. But maybe he felt like, okay, I need some kind of whatever here. Let's just regurgitate that fucking scene from Less Than Zero, or those two scenes from Less Than Zero. But let's switch them, because in the book, Less Than Zero, the mom happens first and then Blair, and in the American Psycho, it's Courtney and then the mother. So like he just switched them. But still, I'm not going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that it was just laziness. And it's like, oh, I could rehash these scenes and just add the details that Patrick Bateman would add in. Like, I'm wearing this, my mom is doing this, blah 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 blah. Like, it just feels like it was laziness, and I felt like I feel like, granted, he was in the pre-internet era, he felt like he could get away with it, that no one would notice.
He just didn't count on you.
He didn't count on me. Sorry, Bret. But yeah, no, I'm gonna drop him to 2. I'm not gonna give him a complete 0. I feel he deserves a 0, but I'm gonna give him a 2. I'll be generous. Okay.
And where are you on Satisfaction?
Satisfaction? I gave him a 6.
I gave him a 2.
I gave him a 2.
I gave him a 2.
I gave him a 2. Why did you give him a 2?
Because I was profoundly unsatisfied.
First time read, this scored higher in Satisfaction. This has dropped. Diminished returns, my good sir. Diminished returns.
Maybe it's because I'm older and things just impress me less.
Yeah, maybe if you had read this when you were 21, 22, it probably would have hit differently.
It maybe, but this is my first read, and I've gotta say, Satisfaction is definitely a hard 2.
I will say, like, there are some, I will say there are, and it's not just this book, there are books throughout the spectrum of fiction that you have to be at the right age to read it to fully kind of.
You know, people have said that about, oh God, what's that book? Catcher in the Rye. Mm-hmm. How they couldn't really appreciate the main character until he was older, and you know something, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna go back. I'm not gonna go back
to that either. I'm not even gonna go back to The Road.
No, I'm not going back to Malcolm X either. A bunch of whiny little bitches.
I wouldn't go back to The Road by Cormac McCarthy, but I will not go back to On the Road by Kerouac.
If you read On the Road by Jack Kerouac even once, and you left thinking that was a good book, you're a moron. Like, genetically and legally, you are inferior to everyone else in the world.
And if it's your favorite book,
don't breed.
Don't breed. In fact, don't even see anybody. But no, I do feel like if I were to read this when I'm older, this will probably score lower than it did
At some point, if you keep rereading this book as you get older, at some point you're gonna burn it.
Yeah, but like it's the same with, okay, so to name another book, which I don't know if you have read it, but had you read it in your late teens, maybe early 20s, you would have found it funny, and like even though it's a stupid book, like you would have still enjoyed it just because of its humor.
John dies at the end.
Yes, it's John dies at the end. Reading it as an older individual, I can't handle it. I'm like, I've grown past literary dick jokes.
Is it because you're older, or is it because you're a more experienced writer?
It might also be I'm a more, like, I could, no offense, David Wong / Jason Pargin, or whatever, how you pronounce that.
Some offense.
Some offense. No offense, but some offense. Offense well earned. I could write circles around you.
You can write circles around most people. That's the annoying thing.
I mean, maybe he can write better, and he's just kind of settled in this juvenile style because it worked for him when he was younger. But he's like, what, in his late 40s, early 50s? But like, dude, like, evolve. Like, it was fine. It was fine when you were in your 20s to write immature shit. Don't keep writing immature shit as you get older. It kind of gets creepy as you get older to write these things. But yeah, I probably won't reread American Psycho, just because I feel like, as you said, I probably will eventually burn this book.
Well, if we need toilet paper at some point in the future, it's something that you have on your shelf.
But I will say I did recently reread The Rules of Attraction, and that still holds for me. Like, even though I'm not in college age anymore, the themes, the like I said, like, or even certain passages, like, you still can sort of relate, because it doesn't matter how old you are. You will at some point in your life feel unrequited love, or be there when someone you didn't know, you don't even know the name of, kills themselves. But like, if it's on your neighborhood or if it's at your place of work, you still kind of are like distantly affected by it.
So this is probably like one of, like, if not his worst, one of his less good works.
While this is heralded as his best, it's not.
No.
It's his most well known, and the movie's okay. But I wouldn't. It's okay. It's an okay film. It's not great. This doesn't hold up.
No, it doesn't.
I would say that the quotes that I picked, they still sort of hold up for a certain mindset. But
maybe. Personally, for quotes, I didn't find anything remotely memorable. Like, there was nothing to take away from this, except clothes, 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 and more clothes. The occasional stabbing. The dead lady. The one thing I did remember was the lady who he put, like, the rat tube in her vagina.
Yeah.
And then he cut her in half after he put a rat inside of her. So that was memorable, but I wouldn't call that a quotable moment.
What about the scene where he's actually eating her out?
I didn't remember that.
Oh, it's anyway. I can't remember where it happened in the book, but it does happen where he's like literally like.
Oh, which time?
I think it's when
it happened more than once. Like, one was in Paul Owen's apartment, and then another one.
I want to say it was the one in Paul Owen's apartment. I want to say.
I remember that.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Going back to where we were, did you give this thing any extra credit?
I gave it 5 points extra credit.
Wow. I gave it 6.
I gave it 5 points extra credit because, quote, I did get some ideas for deaths in the Laughing Man stories.
Okay. I gave it 6 points extra credit because this, as witnessed by a younger me, this will resonate with certain people in its own twisted way. I'm not saying this will make people go out and kill people, but in its own twisted way, it'll make those people that it resonates with, especially those 2 passages I read. I'm not exactly alone in feeling this way, especially when you do feel alone in feeling that way. So 6 points extra credit for me. What was your overall score? Do you have to recalculate? Because I had to recalculate.
It's 61.5.
61.5. That went up a bit?
That went up by 2 points.
Okay. My original score was 87. It went down to 77. 77 J and B's out of 100.
I'm gonna do 66.5 ruptured eyeballs.
Okay.
Out of 100.
All right. So that was American Psycho for, I mean, this isn't an indie book. This is a well-known, traditionally published novel. But surprisingly, we did kind of take it down a peg.
We shit on it a little bit.
Shit on it just a little bit.
We shit on it. I don't know if we took it down a peg, because for us to take it down a peg would require us to provide some self-awareness to Bret Easton Ellis, and I don't think we're going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. But in the minds of other readers who maybe haven't read this book,
think twice.
Think twice. And if you did read this book, if you did read this book already and you still laud it as being a masterpiece, read it again, maybe a few years in the future. Or,
well, if you've read this book and you think it's a masterpiece, leave us a comment and tell us why.
Yeah, why? Because this is
why are you wrong?
This is coming from someone who's willing to admit younger me was wrong. This isn't that great. Because maybe like if we were doing this 10 years ago, this probably would have scored in the 90s. But now it's scoring in the 70s.
Yeah, probably. I would agree with that. If I were 5 years younger, I would probably score this in the high 80s, maybe low 90s. But no, it's definitely, at this point for me, it's definitely middle 60s.
Yeah. What should we review after this? What dick do you have?
What dick do I have? I don't have dick.
No, I meant like dick. What dick do you
have? Scanner Darkly.
Oh, okay. We've already done that one.
I can get another dick if you want.
I get a better dick. No. Get a bigger dick. Actually, all of Dick is small. Or reasonably sized. Depending on your preference.
I would be happy with reasonably sized.
I'm not quite done with the Delillo that I'm on, but I'm on the Delillo right before Ratner's Star.
Jesus. I still get flashbacks when I even think about
I will say this. Reading these 3 before Ratner's Star, I feel like I'm not going to say read the 3, but it does. I feel like it's going to help.
It does help. So should I start with the first Delillo?
I'm not saying no. I'm not saying. I almost kind of want to do a little thought experiment. Like, okay, you have someone who's like, okay, I read the first 3 works and I've familiarized myself with the maximalism of Americana, the hyper-focused attention to the details of a topic in Endzone, and the madness of and spiraling of language with Great Jones Street would help you with Ratner's Star. But I almost be like, no. You still go in kind of blind, but not completely blind, because you do know what to expect now. But I'll have this 3-book.
So I would be willing to do that. It would be very difficult and painful, but I would be willing to do it.
Okay.
For results.
For results, just to see. No, there's no quitting this time.
That's fine. Fuck. That's fine.
Hey, I have to tell myself, because even though I think it will help, I don't think it'll make it any less painful. It'll just be like, okay, I've done this before. I've done this 3 times before in 3 different books, and now it's just all condensed into one. So instead of getting 3, even though this isn't a dick novel, I'm getting, instead of getting 3 different dicks at different times, I'm getting one massive dick.
This is a DeLillo.
It's a DeLillo, yeah.
Not a dick.
I know, that's why I said, I'm like, I know they're not dick novels, but instead of, it's like I'm getting, see, I'm still getting the huge dick up my ass by reading Ratner Star, but at least with the 3 other books, I now have lube. It's still not going to be, it's still going to be uncomfortable, but at least there's lube. And there'll be like spit on your Ratner Star because you have read a large chunk of it beforehand. But I'm going to go back to the beginning. I'm not going to go from where I left off.
I will skim from the beginning. No, I'll probably just go back to the beginning. Okay, fuck it. Oh my god. Okay, so it's an experiment for the channel.
It's an experiment for the channel, which you could say in a sense, because we still sort of ended not on opposite ends of the spectrum, but before we recorded American Psycho, you were in the 50s, I was in the 80s, and we kind of moved closer together. But
it's true, we did.
But this was kind of an experiment, because I actually thought you were actually, just because when I read it when I was younger, and you're, 3 years younger than me still, well, always will be.
Yeah, still. I don't know. I haven't caught up yet. I don't know why.
Why aren't you? I've slowed down for you. Like, come on.
No, you haven't.
I was 9 years older than you when we first met, and now...
You were at most 2 years older than me. I think you've sped up.
I don't know if you have the same, like, reviews on the back of American Psycho, but this is actually kind of a warning sign as to, like, how... I won't say bad this novel is, but like, it says, Bret Easton Ellis is a very, very good writer. I'm like, really? Very, very? He's a very, very good writer? You could have just lessened that to is a great writer, which wouldn't have been true, but...
Well, I feel like Faye Weldon read the novel and then just used his language to leave a review.
Yeah, this was a diminished return read.
This was a 66.5 score read. Not great. But I guess next time...
Is that the median grade?
It's a D.
No, but is that taking both our scores and adding them and subtracting?
No, that's my final score was a 66.5.
I think yours was only a 61.
Oh, God. With the extra credit.
Credit, okay. Well, without the extra credit, it's a 71.
Without the extra credit, it's a 61. Which is still a D.
Yeah. Mine's a C minus. Mine goes from a C minus to at least a C.
Yeah,
plus.
Mine goes from a D to a D minus. So after this, we're going to do another experiment where we both reread Ratner Star.
And finish it this time.
And since this is an experiment, I will have to finish it. I won't be able to just put it down and say, this is too fucking crazy, I'm out. Like, I will actually have to finish it.
Here's the thing, though. Did you get to the second half? Or the second part?
I think so.
The reflections?
I don't remember what it was called, but I got a decent way in, and then I was like, I can't. He's crazy. I can't.
Because reflections is where it starts to get worse, and if you haven't gotten there yet, it gets worse.
I think I might. I don't remember how far in I was. I don't.
I won't say worse. It gets crazier.
I was in a pretty crazy part What was going on? Like, what was the part that you left off? What was the part? What's the second part that you remember that's crazier than the first part?
I won't say that it itself is great. It's well, no, actually. It's the interactions and the dialogue between the characters. It makes less and less sense.
Yes.
Like, and I will do what I did for the defense of American Psycho. I get what DeLillo's doing. I get what he's doing for the book, but like, you don't need to drive me crazy as well. And if that's your intention, DeLillo, good job. But it especially if this is a first DeLillo for someone, it's gonna turn them off. We will get back to indie authors eventually, but
there's one worth reading.
When we find something that piques our interest and holds it with the sample pages available to us on Amazon.
Yes.
Because we can't do our usual litmus test of reading something from the front, something from the back, and a little in the middle. Kind of the world we live in. But so, and viewers, if you have any requests or suggestions, leave a like in the comment section below.
Well, leave the title of the book in the comment section below. You can leave a like at the thumbs up.
Like the comment section.
Or you can leave a dislike at the thumbs down, and that way the two can cancel each other out.
Click the thumbs up or the thumbs down, and that'll let us know the title. And then subscribe, and molest the bell.
Ding.
To tell us the author. We'll hear it. We'll be like, oh yes, okay. But bear in mind, if it's fantasy, I probably won't touch it. If it's romance, EK won't touch it. So it'll be a solo review on either one of our parts if it keeps our attention. But yeah, this has been another episode of Murder of Prose. Thank you for joining us for some conversation about books that we, talk about and pass judgment on the ones we like and condemn the ones we hate. And in this case, this one is on probation. It had its offenses, but it's still decent enough to go out on good behavior.
No, it's not.
It's not.
I am not paroling Bret Easton Ellis. He is in prison.
It's not a 40. It's not a 30 or lower. It's a 77 and a 66. He gets out with an ankle bracelet.
He will re-offend.
He gets out with it. He's on home arrest.
Oh God. Okay, fine. He's out on house arrest.
He's on home arrest, so he can continue, according to you, abuse his partner.
He is going to abuse everything.
I will probably read his new book, when it comes out, just to see if he still has that Bret Easton, magic, or if he's just masturbatory at this point. Imperial Bedrooms was kind of a disappointment, so we'll see.
Next video, we're gonna do Ratner Star. So until then, I guess, like Ray Charles over here, keep it groovy. You have to stop recording. Oh no, I can't.